Okay, today's project is going to be fixing this car. We are going to be removing the subframe off the front end as it is damaged right there. Okay, first thing we need to do is we're going to go ahead and remove the radiator. We're going to remove all the hoses because we're also going to do a belt job. We got to get to the rack and pinion, the steering column thing there, so we're going to take all that out so that we can easily get to that. So we're going to go ahead and take all that out. It's pretty straightforward, just removing a few clamps right in here, removing this. This is going to come up, there's like 2 bolts on that side, undo a couple electrical parts, this electrical part here, electrical here, undo the bolts for the radiator, the whole radiator slides out, and then basically we'll have a big cavity here so that we can easily work and get through there. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this hose for the radiator. We're going to get the radiator fluid all drained out. Well, normally we would use the drain plug, but on this car it has been patched over. So we are going to replace the radiator as well. Okay, we're going to go ahead and let that drain. There's a couple little tricky things on this one. You want to make sure you pull up on this clamp. So stick a screwdriver underneath here and push up, not down. Otherwise you'll break that. So we're going to go ahead, and this actually should be loose. I think we got everything. So you can go ahead and pull that radiator straight up. There might be another clamp on the bottom there. We'll take a look at that. Make sure there should be four screws. One should be right here.
It's screwed in here.
Yeah, and then there's one down there and one down there. Here. So we'll go back underneath to make sure we get all that done. Okay, there was one more underneath. One more right here. This clip right there was holding it in. So we're going to go ahead and pull it out now. It should come right out. Alright. Okay, so now we're going to remove all of this. We're going to just undo all those clips. We're going to undo a couple of these guys. Yep. These clips, all that, and then that whole piece comes out.
From here to here.
From there to there, yep. So let's go ahead and take that out. Alright, so there's one more screw back here you got to get, right back there. Pop this guy off, undo that, and then that whole thing will just pop right off. Whole thing comes off. Okay, next we're going to have a bolt right down here. And on the other side, which I can't quite get to pull that off. And then that whole unit, this needs to come off, and that whole thing comes out as one piece. There should be one piece of electrical right here. You got to stick your, you got to stick a little screwdriver in there and pop that little tiny clip off, and then that whole piece comes right out. Just like that. And then I always put this back in here just make sure that doesn't fall apart. And then we're going to have to cut a clip right here. And then we will take 1, 2, looks like 3 bolts off, and then that whole unit comes out. Alright, so we've undone the 4 bolts. By the way, these are 12mm, and then this little one up here is 10mm. Okay, and then that whole piece should come out. You gotta kind of wiggle it through underneath the, there you go. Sometimes you can get them out in one piece, sometimes you gotta undo that from the back of the thing.
Don't rip any wires out when you're pulling.
Yes, don't yank on electrical.
No force.
Alright, so that's that piece. Now that gets us access down here. By the way, if you ever do a water pump is located right here. And you have to remove this, the top of that. You have to remove all this. You have to get back in there. You have to remove the timing belt and everything. It's kind of a pain. But at least you know where it's at. And we may actually have to do that on this car. We already did it on a different one, but at any rate, okay. And then so that gives us access. We are now going to take this off, and that gives us access to that bolt right there for the rack and pinion to be disconnected. And then we will start removing the brakes and all that. Okay, now that we have that removed, we now have to get down in here. Because we're removing the whole subframe, we have to remove all the rack and pinion. So we're going to go ahead and remove this clamp. We're going to cut this little clip right here with this electrical, or that's actually ground, I think. And then we are going to, whoops, there's another clamp under here. And if you don't get all of them off, when you lower the subframe, it's going to put pressure on them. So we're going to remove all of the hoses from the power steering fill, everything that's connected to the power steering pump. We're going to remove it all. The nice thing is, having a video, you can go back and see how it is all supposed to look when you're done. So, all right. So now we're going to use a 10mm wrench and remove those two bolts right there. That will allow us just to have greater access to the nut we need to remove on the steering rack and pinion there. Okay. And then we've already disconnected all the clamps and everything. We removed the hose from the pump to the cylinder there, so that's good.
Be careful when you're taking these bolts out, if you still have your oil underneath, not to drop them in the oil pan.
Right, it makes for a messy situation.
He wants to go diving.
Okay, so we'll get that off, and we're going to remove that whole thing there, give us some access. Okay, and just so you know, you got to remember this car is 20 years old, so this pipe does not like to come off. It's extremely melded to it, so we're going to go ahead and just cut it off and replace it. It's like a $4 thing, so we're just going to take a blade and cut it. Just go straight like that. Yep. Just straight, that way it should be able to pop right off. And just move it around a little bit. Oops, sorry. Might have to cut it again. Maybe unpeel it, stick your finger on there and just kind of unpeel it from there. It's just from the antifreeze and everything being up underneath it for so long. There you go. Alright, and then that's going to come on out. And we're going to go ahead and replace that whole hose there. There you go. So now we're down to where we have access to be able to remove that bolt right there. And just so you know, when you are removing that, don't just loosen it. You have to remove the whole thing to get it off there. Alright, so we are pretty much ready to go on this end. So we are now going to switch gears to removing all of the brakes. And if you've never done that, it's not real hard. You're going to remove these two bolts right here, and then two more bolts on the back side right here and on the bottom. You're going to undo this bolt and remove the brake line, and then this is what's called a floating rotor, so this is just going to pop right off. As a matter of fact, you can see it moving. That's going to come off, and then we'll document as we go. Okay, so the top bolt is a 17mm, and then the back bolt, which is right there, is going to be a 14mm. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take that off there, and it's going to be a pain, most likely. or very loose. Oh, we had a 3/8 inch ratchet here. Alright, so we have 17 inch. This is stubborn, so we're going to just hit it a couple times. There you go. We're going to remove the 2 bolts around the calipers. That caliper will just come off. That should be loose, I think. It's close. You want to do the bottom one? Okay, and then just an FYI, the top one is 17, the bottom one is a 14. So we're going to go ahead and grab a ratchet for that. Okay, so we've got those 2 bolts.
Something to make a deep hole in that thing.
We got these 2 bolts undone. We're going to go ahead and remove the oil line here, the brake fluid line. In a normal brake job, I wouldn't do that. I would leave that there right now. I think it's a 12, or maybe a 10. But in this case, since we're totally redoing everything here, we're going to go ahead and take that off. We'll just bleed the line later. So go ahead and get that. Okay, so this is, we're going to remove that. So go ahead and pop that off there. Take it out all the way. It's going to put your drain pan underneath because it can get oil everywhere. And this is just going to pop right on off of there. There's a little drain plug. Let that drain in there for a second, and then that whole caliper should just pop right off. Or it won't.
In theory.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and remove this other bracket first. I was hoping that would just pop out, but it's not going to. So we're going to go ahead and take those 2 bolts off, and then the whole thing will come off. Okay, so we've loosened the two bolts there, so we're going to go ahead and pull this thing off here. And then there's 1 bolt on the bottom. There you go. Now sometimes if you've never done brakes, sometimes your rotor is on there and you gotta hit it with a hammer. Do not hit it with a hard hammer. Get like a rubber mallet or something to hit it to loosen it, or even spray some penetrating oil on the backside just to get it off if it's been on there a while. So, alright, so that's it there. We're gonna do the exact same thing on the other side, and then we'll come back and start taking some other stuff off. Okay, next order of business, we removed the bolt that goes through the strut. That right there. Next thing we are going to do is we're going to remove the top bolt right here to the stabilizer arm. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. And then following that, we will do it on the other side as well. And then we are going to remove the bolts. Let's see if I can see this here, right under there that you can see, those 2 up here. Both of those. And then there's another bolt in this hole right here. It's in there. That is actually connected to the engine. We're going to remove all that. And then there's another one right under here. And one more. You can kind of see it right up in there. It's not very hard to get to. So we're going to go ahead and start removing some of that, and then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so now we're going to remove that bolt right there. Sorry about that. And it can be a pain. Okay, I'm going to use a breaker bar here to put this on here, and hopefully I can film and do this at the same time. Okay, and I'm going to hold the bottom here if you want to. There we go. Oops.
Okay, go ahead and pull that off.
Okay, and then next we're going to remove this shock bolt right here, and those are 17 millimeter.
Yep.
So we're going to get that done. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and remove that bolt, and we already loosened it with the help of our breaker bar. So we're going to get that off. Okay. Next, we are going to remove, actually let me get this side. We're going to remove those two, and those as well are, well, those are 3/4 inch, and what I found best to use is a 3/4 inch deep well with a small extension on it. Put that extension underneath the upper control arm, just like that. And then that leaves this out here, and we can use the breaker bar to, from right underneath here, we can put the breaker bar right up here and attach it to it. And I'm not gonna lie, these can be a bugger. Let's see. Alright, we're gonna try this here. Okay, loosen that one. Okay, so we got both of those, whoops, we got both of those loosened, and we're just going to loosen these bolts right now because we don't have engine support or anything under there, so we're going to loosen those. Next, we are going to take and remove the bolt that is in that little cubby hole up back in there. We're going to go ahead and remove
This one
that.
here?
No, it's in that hole there. See it? Up
Yep.
towards the engine. So we're going to remove that. And we'll let you know how that goes. Alright, so we got that removed out of that little cubby hole over there. Now we are going to remove the bolts right back. Nope, sorry, wrong spot. Right there.
Right here?
Yep. That one's next, and then there's another one right above it. Towards you, yep, right up. It goes up to the frame. No, it's back. It's back next to that one. Oops, sorry.
Not bad.
Right up in there.
This one, and then this.
Okay, so it is right there, right up in there is where that second bolt is. You'll be able to see it once you look up in there. And both of those are 14, I think?
Yeah.
14 millimeter.
14s?
Yep. So we're going to go ahead and loosen, but not take off. We're going to loosen all the subframe bolts so that we can hoist the engine with a jack before we actually take them off. Okay, so now we have everything loose in terms of the subframe.
Last piece we removed was this one right here.
Yeah, so this pipe right here to the top of the pump needs to be removed from that spot right there on the rack and pinion.
Yep.
And otherwise you're gonna be in trouble. Then what I did here was I marked with some fingernail polish where the rack and pinion goes onto the steering mechanism, and we're going to remove this bolt now, and you have to fully remove it for it to come off. Something I learned last time I did this. The last thing that we need to remove is this right here, so that will free up that pipe that's connected to the rack and pinion. And then the whole subframe will drop. So we have removed the bolts back here, underneath there. We've removed these. These are loose. We've also supported the vehicle, or the engine. Now we're actually going to do the drain pan at the same time. So we have put the jack behind that spot so that can come down. I think that's about it. I think we're ready to pull it down.
Let's do it.
Okay, we have removed that bolt, and we've removed that, so we are good to go. We are now going to loosen, or finish taking out those two bolts right there. Both of those on both sides. We've got the engine supported by that jack, and we also have another jack, a floor jack, supporting in the center of the subframe. And what we're going to do is, as soon as that gets loose, we will bring the jack down bit by bit, make sure it's not getting hung up on anything, and it's good to come out.
I'm going to show you what we did.
Okay, there's a little trick here. Once you have that done, you've got to support the subframe with the jack and slowly move it down while you're prying this part off. And you do it just a little bit at a time, and it'll basically just come right off. So and then so now we should be able to, theoretically, I'm going to actually see if I can do this. See if I can set this up here like that, alright? And then now we should be able to lower this down slowly. Alright, and then this, I'll just come on out of here. Put your end down, just there you go. And that is the removal of a subframe. Okay, so that's the subframe with the rack and pinion all intact, which we are going to transfer to the new subframe, which we actually have over here taken out of this car. And we're not going to take that one, put it here. So let's look at the damage on this one. Where's that at?
Right up under here.
Let's see.
Yeah, let me get on the other side. I'll stand it for you.
It was on this side. It's right there. That's the damage. I have no idea what the person that owned this before us. This is what it's supposed to look like.
It's supposed to look like that.
And
this is what it actually looks like.
this is what it looks like. So
All completely bent back.
jacked over. So at any rate, now let's get this thing cleaned up, and then we are going to put it back on.